Hey, it's Kaya, and you're listening to my podcast, Girl, She's Bookish, where I talk to you about some of my top favorite reads. Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Girl, She's Bookish. Today's book we are going to be talking about is Without Merit by Colleen Hoover. I recently just read this book. I got it as a birthday present. I went to Barnes & Noble and I looked at all of the Colleen Hoover books, and the cover of this book really stood out to me, and so that's the reason I was like, you know what, I'm going to choose this book. Describing the cover of the book, it's like ripped up pages and it has red stitching in the middle of the book. Along with the stitching and kind of like paper being put back together for the cover, there's also safety pins along that sewing stitch line as well, in between the stitches almost. And I don't know, this cover, the book itself just really stood out to me. I was drawn to this one more than, I can't remember what the other one I was looking at was by chance now, but this one just really stood out to me, and I just finished this book on Monday or Tuesday of this week, around that time. So I'm just super excited to talk to you about this book. Though, out of all of her books, this one, it took me a little longer to really get into the book rather than the other ones where like I loved it right away. This one, I really didn't have that feeling. I guess like comparing the other books I've read of hers, this one kind of starts out more with like a different vibe to it, I guess. It has romance, but it's also very like drama filled, I would say. But anyways, let's get started by talking about the characters in the book. Without Merit focuses on this family, and they are called the Voss family. And starting off, we have Merit, who is the main character. She is 17 years old. She's spunky, quick-witted. She keeps her family secrets, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But she's always negative and just down about her life. And she tends to act like she really isn't a part of the family. She doesn't feel like she's part of the family, and she also feels that no one cares about her. Merit has a twin sister named Honor, and I would describe Honor to be the polar opposite of Merit. Cares more about her appearance, is more girly, wears makeup, makes sure she looks really presentable. I would just say Honor is really the polar opposite of Merit. Merit has then a brother named Utah, a half-brother named Moby, her father, whose name is Barnaby, her mom, whose name is Victoria, which is also her stepmother's name, which is also Victoria, and then there is Sagan, who is Honor's friend, and then lastly there is Luck, which is Merit's step-uncle. It's really hard to describe these characters without giving away a huge piece of information, but pretty much I mentioned this like for 2 seconds when I did describe Merit, that each character has secrets and Merit holds those secrets. The secrets are huge. It's very suspenseful, and when talking about the characters, more or less, it's like you give it away if you talk about them. So, dun dun dun, read to find out what each family member's secret is. Those are the characters. Make sure to keep it locked because I'm going to be talking to you about the plot, which is super fun-filled drama. So, make sure to keep listening. Hey, it's Kaya, and you're still listening to Girl, She's Bookish. Starting off, Merit is, like I said, she's 17 years old, but she doesn't just have to deal with, the normal things that teenagers go through. She has to deal with her family on top of it. She believes that almost everybody in her family has issues. But she doesn't really think that she has some issues as well. Um, Merritt collects trophies and she goes to garage sales, antique shops. Whenever something bad happens in her life, or when she just needs a little like self-care pick me up, she gets a trophy that she has not won. Merritt and her family don't live in a normal house. They actually live in the town's old church. And this is because Merritt's father, Barnaby, didn't like how the pastor had a dog that would bark all the time, so he found a way to buy the church when the pastor couldn't keep up with things. Along with that, Merritt's dad, Barnaby, had an affair when her mother was sick, and that resulted in her parents getting divorced, which then her dad remarried to the stepmom, Veronica, and they ended up having a kid together. Another piece of information that really is not normal is that Merritt's mother lives in the basement apartment of the church, and this is because she has agoraphobia. I believe I'm saying it right, but it's a mental and behavioral disorder. Mostly deals with anxiety disorder, but it's symptoms of anxiety when in situations where a person perceives their environment, but with that they feel unsafe and that there's no easy way to escape. So this is where kind of it also becomes more about mental health as well. Merritt doesn't go to school, and this is pretty much dealing with the fact that her family is so worried about themselves and not Merritt that she just doesn't feel like anyone notices her. In the first chapter, like getting right into the book, Merritt is out thrift shopping, antique shopping, pretty much looking for trophies, and she collects trophies, especially when she needs a pick me up, like I said before. But when she's looking at these trophies and in this antique shop, she sees a cute guy checking her out, and then when she leaves the store, this guy comes up to her and ending up they kiss. But this is a really important kiss because the guy is Sagan, who is Honor's boyfriend. Honor says in the beginning of the book. And Merritt is just really upset about this. It's mostly because her twin sister Honor, like, she's just very jealous of her, I would say. Merritt is very jealous of Honor. And it's because, I kind of said this before in the character description, but Honor and Merritt are just complete opposites. Honor is popular at school. She's so focused on wearing makeup and looking pretty, where Merritt doesn't really have friends. She's quiet. She doesn't really care about her appearance. And this is what really makes them polar opposites. So overall, Merritt is very jealous of Honor. After Merritt has that whole incident situation with Sagan, he begins to start showing up for dinner, but then you also figure out that he's living in the church with the Voss family, but the reason for why he's living there is really never stated in the book. It's never explained as to why. So you don't really have a reason like, oh, he just lives there. Like, I wonder why he lives there. Like, it's never really explained. But then later on, after, Sagan comes to dinner, Merritt really just tries to avoid him. She just doesn't want to have any contact with him. And then Merritt meets Luck for the first time, her step uncle, but she doesn't know that that's who he is until Merritt is at the supermarket and decides to give this guy a ride to his sister's house. And turns out this is when Merritt realizes Luck's sister is Merritt's stepmom, Victoria. And Luck is the same as everybody else. He is not normal as well, and he has secrets. Another thing about her step uncle Luck is that he really does later in the book become another love interest for Merritt. So it's not only Sagan that's a love interest, there's also Luck as well. And keep in mind, her step uncle Luck is like 20 years old and she's 17. So it's kind of like an age gap situation as well. But he's also her step uncle. So it's kind of an interesting and weird love interest for Merritt. The huge part of the plot, kind of I stated in the beginning, is that the family has secrets and they have huge secrets. And Merritt is forced to keep these secrets. And so she just begins to go down a path of, destruction and anger. And she gets very sad and angry one night. And so she decides to write this letter calling all of her family members out on their secrets. And that is yet again another piece of information that if you read the book, you can figure out each family member's individual secrets, because that is a huge spoiler and I do not want to spoil that for you. So read the book without Merritt to find out the family secrets. So that is a plot. If you want to know the family secrets, like I've stated many times, just make sure to read without Merritt. I just don't want to spoil it for you, but that was the overall plot and things I really wanted to focus on. Out of all the Colleen Hoover books I've read so far, this book without Merritt was one of the harder ones for me to get into and really hooked into the book. There are a few reasons as to why I think it took me a little longer to really get into the book. The first reason is that I wouldn't say it's just a romance book. I would say it's a slight romance, but it's really more focused on mental and emotional health. From reading Ugly Love and It Ends With Us, talking about those two books, it was based mostly around romance, but for this one, I felt that it was like the total opposite. Merritt's mother, Victoria, she suffers from severe, social anxiety, and Merritt suffers with depression, and she's jealous of her sister. And there's all of these different themes that are throughout the book, especially with the secrets and the anger, and keeping all those secrets inside. Like, that's like the main focus of the book is like mental health and, like their emotions as like a not normal family that has these huge secrets. And like I just said, reading Ugly Love and It Ends With Us, it's heavy on the romance. This book was very light on the romance. You have Merritt, who is in love with Honor's boyfriend, and that's really all you see. But you also, have the love interest that Merritt has with her step uncle Luck, But that's really all there is just those few love interests, and it's just very light on the romance. And I feel like that was also why it was really hard for me to get into as well, just reading those previous books and then this one. It was quite a change of themes, I would say. Another reason I feel it was hard for me to really get hooked onto this book as well was the amount of characters in Without Merritt compared to Ugly Love and It Ends With Us. In Ugly Love, we just had really Tate, Miles, and Corbin, and It Ends With Us, we had Lily, Ryle, Alyssa. There wasn't as many characters, and so I feel like the overwhelming amount of characters in Without Merritt really affected getting more into the book. And there's another reason as to why having so many characters is as well, and I feel that it's also the fact that the way that Colleen Hoover writes, she takes her time introducing characters and the plots and the situations and making everything full circle. She really does take her time with that in her writing. And when you have all these characters and the slowness, it just kind of drags a little bit, I felt. And it kind of makes things confusing. At least I felt they were kind of confusing for me personally. Once I finally did get hooked onto the book, I really, really did enjoy it. I liked kind of the secret part of it, just knowing that the family has secrets, and you kind of learn that in the beginning into a few chapters, but then when those are revealed, it's like, oh my gosh, like just knowing what they are is just, it's crazy. And I was very shocked when the Luck and Merritt love interest came about. That was a big shocker for me. I was like freaking out. I was like, what is going on? Like, what is this? Like, I was just so shocked to even like read that. It was crazy. But yeah, overall, I loved the book. It did just take me a little bit, and there are just those few components I felt that really did affect as to why it took me a while to get hooked onto the book. But it was a really great read. I am, though, very, very excited for next week's podcast. I did just recently get another new Colleen Hoover book. My boyfriend actually ordered me this book. He wanted free shipping off of Amazon, and he's like, I'm going to get you something. What do you want? And I was like, oh, like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, like, I'll get a Colleen Hoover book. And once I saw this book, I, like, needed to have it. And the book I'm going to be talking about next week is called It Starts With Us. And it's actually the sequel to It Ends With Us. And if you remember, It Ends With Us was like one of my favorites. Like, I love this book. I was over the top, like, emotional roller coaster. Like, I was just so in love with that book, honestly. Like, that book is like still one of my all-time favorites. So then when I saw the sequel, I was like, wow, like, I really, really need to have that. So I'm super, super excited to read that book this weekend when I go home. And I'm just so excited to be able to share it with you. It Starts With Us talks about Atlas's side of the story. So, when It Ends With Us, we kind of heard like the Lily and Ryle story. But now we get to hear Atlas's side of the story. So I'm super, super excited. But yeah, make sure to tune in next week to hear about Atlas's side of the story, and It Starts With Us. And also make sure to comment any other books you'd like me to read and talk about here on Girl, She's Bookish. But thanks for listening. You just listened to Girl, She's Bookish, right here on KZOW 91.9